for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips. As always, I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, Mr. Andrew Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, even though it's in the 60s and 50s and no snow whatsoever. I don't know what, I mean, I'm sure Travis is probably a little bit colder up north there. I don't know if he's got...
Yeah, it's been cold, rainy, just nasty, dreary weather. It's a nasty weekend. At least today's kind of dry, but it rained all day yesterday. From like the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, it rained.
I just, I would, you know, I say this every year, and of course teachers shiver at this when I say this. You want one good snow day, get it out of your system, and then let's go punch ahead towards summer break. I mean, this is the 3 days.
I feel like every year of teaching is just trying to survive to your next summer break.
Oh, you know what? Six and a half more, boys. 6.5 more.
Who's counting, right?
And I'm ready. I am. As soon as Bryson walks across the stage, I'm calling in sick for the last week of school. You know, and it's a wild ride. But I tell you what, Christmas break is like, you know, it's a day. I'm making it, man. We're making it. We only got 3 days left until Christmas, and that's about where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy how fast it's come up. I am not ready for it.
I do have all my Christmas shopping done, though. I am.
That makes one of us.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I got a few more things to get, unfortunately.
Yeah, so.
Let's go rob a bank.
Did you guys?
You didn't hear that on the show.
No.
Tell me about it. It's yeah.
So
tis the season for Bidenomics to be doing its work on.
And you say that, you know what?
This year.
So have you guys seen the meme that's out there? I don't know how much truth there is to it, but it, you know, from Home Alone. Home Alone, I was made back in the 90s. I think it was 90 or 91. And when Kevin goes to the store and gets whatever was on his shopping list, in the movie they tally it up and it's like $17 and something. A year ago, that same shopping list was like $40 or $50, and this year they said it's $77 for that same. I was like, wow, we've really come a long way since 1990. Of course, I can remember my first year teaching. I could fill up a shopping cart for less than $100, and now it's $100.
Well, and I think there's like there's a screen grab from Die Hard where gas, like at a gas station, is like 70 cents.
Yeah.
Per gallon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being a kid, like, my dad would take me to school in the morning, and like we always stopped at the gas station, and we'd be like, damn, gas went up. And I remember the prices at like $1.20,
Oh, God, we'd kill for that.
low dollar.
We'd kill for that today. Oh.
You know, I can say this though. In Kansas City, we have been blessed with lower gas prices than a lot of the other parts.
Yeah, you have.
And I filled the other day, so no joke. I made the mistake. I was like running on low, and then I forgot to fill up coming home from work because I was like in a rush to get home. And then I went and took a friend at like 5 a.m. to the hospital. He was having a surgery, and by the time I dropped him off at the hospital, my miles to E was on 9.
Nice.
So then I drove because it was, mind you, in my head, the hospital he's supposed to go to is like right next to his house, but no, he went to one that was like
across town,
several miles away, like through downtown. And so I dropped him off. I went to Costco and I filled up. So basically at 0, filled my tank, 12-gallon tank, and spent less than $30.
Wow.
So
what is gas? I mean, so what is gas? How much is that?
I think when I filled up, it was like 248 or something like that a gallon.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, like that same trip to the gas station in Los Angeles would have been $70-$80. There's no like it's so expensive out there. It's like minimum of $5 and some change per gallon.
Oh man,
like $5.60, stuff like that. It's nuts.
Yeah, the times we live in. And speaking of the times we live in, I'll just throw this out there, and I'm just waiting for Sean's punchlines. But new over the weekend, Capitol Hill rocked by sex tape scandal featuring famous Senate hearing room. Senate hearing room 216 of the Hart Senate office building. Apparently a tape went public last week of a staffer who worked for it was Senator Ben Cardin. He's a Democrat from Maryland, and the tape is of two men getting funky over the dais in Senate Room 216, and so the staffer has since been let go. But they're saying that there's no criminal charges that they're going to go after because it wasn't done in public. But this guy could be criminal provision is lewd, indecent, or obscene acts. But hey, only.
I thought it was just a scheme from Bruno. Basically, right? Did they have a bicycle, or was it just
Oh, that's your guys' department. That's
scam. Old school. Do we have details?
Yeah, getting funky with it is
I need to hear the nit and grit of it.
Getting funky with it is the new way to say
Was Ron Paul
taking it
part of it?
And it was Rune Pool. If I couldn't stoop Rune Pool, how was I supposed to? Yeah. No, I whenever this came out, it's funny because this guy has one option, and it is to lean heavily into OnlyFans now. Like that is, if I'm him, because your career in politics is over. Actually, you know what? No, I say that, but I don't think it is.
I'd say he was. Already,
you can market it.
I'd say
you could. Yeah, I mean, he's the only politician really taking it to the Senate. Taking it in the Senate, taking it to the Senate. That's the slogan that I think
you want to know how to take it to the man. That's how you
take it from the man.
Literally.
Take it from the man. Yeah, I can't say that I'm surprised, but it is funny that things like this is that you could be, like I said, you could be at the insurrection, go to jail for 10 years. You take it in the ass on a Senate committee hearing floor.
On the dais. It was on the
dais.
It was on the dais. I mean, if you look on X, all they have is the blurred out, but the guys bent over the front of the dais
taxpayer dollars hard at work.
You got
very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard at work.
And of course, when you go to the news, I find it also entertaining that when you go to I got the news story, the basis of it from Fox, and they show this picture from the same spot the guy was doing the act on, and they have this big jar of Purell and Clorox wipes right there against the dais wall. So I'm like, I think you're going to...
You want to know what would have been funny? Like, what would have made it perfect? Is if he was like wearing a mask, like wearing a COVID mask, gotta protect yourself.
Oh man, you gotta protect. You new round of COVID going through, and
that's the shame though. It's like
man.
Never mind. I can't make this joke. But I was gonna say, like, why is it now? We finally get a good sex tape on location, and it couldn't have been like,
Monica and Bill.
Couldn't have been like Sarah Palin or something cool like that. Why'd we have to get this just staffer? Or why couldn't have because here's the thing. There's a good chance that the CIA, the FBI, someone has footage of Dr. Bill Clinton and old Monica Lewinsky partaking in the old cigar, the infamous cigar. Like that happened, in the White House. So that footage of it has to exist.
Well, ever since Lyndon Johnson, they've had every conversation that happens in the Oval Office is taped. So there's at least audio footage somewhere. Yes, there's audio footage. And
Monica Lewinsky's really. Oh, God. Bill, what's going on in there? Nothing, hell dog. Calm down.
Calm down over there.
Getting my pants pleated. Just give me a minute.
Getting changed.
Shaking hands. Yeah, I was getting changed.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God.
He's tugging his bird.
It just goes to show what a clown show it is out there in DC now.
I was thinking the
same
story
of just ridiculousness.
I was thinking the same thing. This is what it's come to, is that the people who are elected in office. I've said this often, and I think there's a reflection of.
Well, granted, that was an aid, though, right?
It's an aid, but still, it's a. You can't. I don't.
Still represent
right, but it's not a. When you look at society as a whole today, it's not fair. You can't point fingers at other people. You can't point fingers and say, "Oh, look what they did," or "Look what they did." Or look, there's stuff that's going on in just homes around the United States that pale in comparison to stuff like this. I know it sounds bad to say it like that, but you can't point the finger at somebody else and say, "Well, this is going on." Just like you said, this is. They might as well get the tape and just. Market it over onto whatever channels that Sean views on the weekends. But the Pornhubs or whatever. But that's the thing. I'm wondering if that'll ever if that footage will ever see the light of day, or somebody if they'll ever release it, or if there'll be a.
Not a light. Real quick, not a lot of light
comment.
In
no comment, Sean, on these statements there. No comment.
No, I partake in the Sabbath. On the
the Sabbath. So. Yes.
Yeah, there's days for rest.
Yep. Yep. The other headline that came up this weekend, before we get into our main topic tonight, Rudy Giuliani. On Friday, a jury found that he's ordered to pay $148 million to two Georgia election workers that he defamed. I don't know if you guys are familiar with these, but it's Wandrea Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman. And I saw these women who testified during the January 6th hearings. I don't know if it was this summer or last summer or when that was. But these two women who had testified, that Giuliani had spread rumors that, if you look at this footage, here are these two workers who are doing some kind of dishonest things. They're tampering with the election boxes, and they're this and they're that. And both of these women were, they received a lot of racist voicemails, violent voicemails. They didn't know, people said, they were going to come to their house and hang them and all this stuff. And of course, it had to happen in Georgia. But then this got the Georgia Secretary of State involved in it. And Georgia Secretary of State, who, by the way, Republican, looked into it, and they launched a full-on investigation, watched all the footage, and they're like, there's no wrongdoing done here. And so then, these ladies did the right thing. I would have, if you're just two local yokels who are, and this one woman, the older woman, had been doing this for years, had been an election worker for years. And, and then all of a sudden your life turned upside down because, Giuliani just happens to make statements about you. I would have done the same thing. I would have filed a defamation suit as well. So, but a lot of people are saying that, of course, Giuliani's going to appeal it, and that this is that he'll never pay a cent of it and everything like that. But I hope that he, just gets bled dry. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering if they're gonna what that's gonna set as far as how am I trying to word this?
Precedent?
If what's this gonna set for the future, especially with Trump? I mean, with all the other things that are going on with his cases and stuff. I mean, are they gonna keep? Well, we know they're gonna keep hammering him with stuff, but like,
in general. After this, and I'll speak in a broad...
I think it's the right call. Don't get me wrong. I think this is the right call here.
Yeah.
Just based off the evidence I've seen with this whole election stuff.
But in broad,
I think
in broad generalized terms, though, everything about every piece of evidence that is brought up about there being a fraudulent in this election, and I know we had my friend Tim Odkin on back this summer. He was honest to goodness, not a radical Trumper, but he's he stated irregularities and all this other stuff, and that there was a possibility of the election being tampered with. And we do have a lot of Republican people who listen to the show and are probably commenting like crazy over on the side. But when you make statements like that, and we're going to talk about this, with Biden here in a little bit, with Hunter Biden. But when you make statements like anything like this, you cannot just go on like rumors, hearsay, or well, here's my opinion, even though I'm not an expert and even though I have no expertise in the field. But if you look at, here's Giuliani. If you look at this videotape, you can see right here. When you make statements like that, I mean, I feel that that's highly dangerous. And for somebody to be held accountable for, $148 million, I mean, those ladies will never have to work another day in their life. And I mean, you look at the character of these two ladies, you read about their background. They're people who are both highly involved in their communities. The older woman, Wanda Freeman, highly involved in her community, worked the election. She's a small town gal who just doing her democratic service, and now,
Yeah, you can't just accuse someone of wrongdoing and ruin their name without any type of evidence other than what they had. I mean, what they had was a witch hunt.
Well, and so I think that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about today. I mean, so Hunter Biden, Sean, once you delve us into this whole thing with Hunter Biden and where we're going to go with this.
Yeah, so basically, like, it's no surprise that Hunter Biden has kind of been the talking point of Republicans and a lot of right wing kind of groups and on was there illegal activity. Essentially, a lot of it kind of boils down to they're trying to pin if they can connect illegal activity that Hunter Biden participated in with his father at any period of time is essentially kind of what they're gunning for. So essentially, this is, I'm going to read this. This is from the oversight.house.gov. Okay, so this is from a government website. This is not from Fox. This is not from anybody. So this is going to be the breakdown from a .gov website. Okay, so I'll do the breakdown. So since taking the gavel in January, the Committee on Oversight and Accountability has accelerated its investigation of the Biden family's domestic and international business practices to determine whether the Biden family has been targeted by foreign actors. President Biden is comprised and our national security is threatened. Records obtained through the committee's subpoenas to date reveal that the Bidens and their associates, this is from the .gov website, mind you, .gov. Committee subpoenas to date reveal that the Bidens and their associates have received over $20 million in payments from foreign entities. So below is a timeline that details key dates in their investigation. So main points of interest are Romania. On September 28, 2015, Vice President Biden welcomed Romanian President Klaus heinous to the White House. Within 5 weeks of the meeting, a Romanian businessman involved with a high-profile corruption prosecution in Romania, Gabriel Popovitsky, began depositing a Biden Associates bank account, which ultimately made their way into Biden family accounts. Popovitsky made 16 of 17 payments totaling over $3 million to the Biden Associate account while Joe Biden was vice president. Biden family accounts ultimately received approximately $1.038 million. The total amount from the Romania to the Biden family and their associates is over $3 million. So that's Romania. Now we get into China, and there's a couple of Chinese on here, okay? So on March 1st, 2017, less than 2 months after Vice President Joe Biden left public office, State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese company, wired $3 million to a Biden Associates account. This is the same bank account used in the that was mentioned before in the Romania section. So after the Chinese company wired the Biden Associate account, the $3 million, the Biden family received approximately $1,065,692 over a 3-month period in different bank accounts. Additionally, the CEFC chairman gives Hunter Biden a diamond worth $80,000. And lastly, the CEFC creates a joint venture with the Bidens in the summer of 2017. The timeline layouts of the WhatsApp messages and the subsequent wires from the Chinese to the Bidens of $100,000 and a wire of $5 million. The total amount from China, specifically with the CEFC and the related entities to the Biden family and their associates, is over $8 million.
Good night.
And we'll keep diving, but I'll end on this one. In Kazakhstan, so on April 22nd, 2014, a Kazakhstani oligarch used his Singaporean entity Novatois Holdings to wire one of Hunter Biden's Rosemount Seneca entities $142,300. The very next day, April 23rd, 2014, the Rosemount Seneca entity transferred the exact same amount of money to a car dealership for a car for Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden and Devin Archer would represent Burisma in Kazakhstan in May/June of 2014 as the company attempted to broker a 3-way deal among Burisma, the Kazakhstan government, and a Chinese state-owned energy company. So essentially what it looks like we're seeing here is a lot of bribe money, or a you scratch my back, I will scratch your back, especially because the Bidens were a family that were in power. So more or less, even if, Grandpa Joe was not directly involved, his son was. And by his son taking this money, hence and this money ending up in Biden family households, goes to show that there seems like there's a lot of collusion and a lot of you do this for me, I'll do this for you.
Or money laundering.
Quite literally. And I mean, this goes into Hunter Biden joining a board of directors for a company in the Ukraine. And basically, without going into that, the total amount from Ukraine to the Biden family and their associates is $6.5 million. So if we wonder why billions upon billions upon billions have been sent to the Ukraine, it was, scratched my back at the time, scratch yours. And then this is the last one here from Russia. I'll actually read this one. On February 14th, so Valentine's Day of 2014, a Russian oligarch and Russia's richest woman, Yelena Baturina, wired a Rosemont Seneca, that same entity mentioned above, $3.5 million. On March 11th, 2014, the wire was split up. $750,000 was transferred to Devin Archer, and the remainder was sent to Rosemont Seneca Bowie, a company Devin Archer and Hunter Biden split equally. In the spring of 2014, Yelena joined Hunter Biden and Devin Archer to share a meal with then Vice President Joe Biden at a restaurant in Washington, D.C. The total amount from Russia to the Biden family and their associates is $3.5 million.
Now, is that information that Gov is that? Are we assuming that's from the committee, like what they've uncovered with the whole paper trail? And
yeah.
stuff,
So this is the Committee on Oversight and Accountability.
Okay.
And then to add to that, on December 7th, then A federal grand jury charged Hunter Biden with a scheme to evade taxes on more than $1 million in income from foreign businesses. He faces 3 counts of evasion of a tax assessment, failure to file and pay taxes, and filing a false or fraudulent tax return. If convicted, he could face a maximum of 17 years in prison. So this is just what.
First off, Sean, thanks for finding that link. That is, that was perfect compared to the stuff we had. That is exactly what we were looking for. So good info there.
Well,
go ahead, V.
I think that this is the tip of the iceberg within the political circles within the circles of Washington. You know, we can touch on this a little bit later, or maybe even get into this next time. But there are committees, these oversight committees are now starting to look into different congressmen or anybody who's got connections to anybody. You're starting to see more connections to businesses, or I know this person who knows this person who knows this person, and this is nothing new. This is nothing new to the Congress. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a famous cartoon back from the early 1900s of this political cartoon that I'm thinking of. It's called Bosses of the Senate. And it shows like the beef trust and the oil trust and the coal trust. They're these guys in these top hats, and they're dressed. They look like big fat money bags standing at the back of the Senate. Money has always been able to been linked to people who are in power or related to people who are in power, and so this is not something new. But I think Hunter Biden has gotten his hand caught so deep into the cookie jar that. I don't know. Would you guys label this as a political witch hunt? I mean, how is this different?
Well, cookie jar is a funny way to say a prostitute's asshole. But
I would have said witch hunt until Sean went through that whole list from the actual committee. I mean, if this paper trail is legit, we'll see what comes out of these hearings. If this paper trail is legit, and I'll be honest, I'm biased here. I want this shit to be legit because I do not like the Biden family. It all smells bad to me. With that being said, I don't think this is a witch hunt. I think they might be onto something here. But I wonder, because we're going after Biden on this one, but like how much of this kind of stuff goes on across the table? But how much is like everybody involved in this kind of stuff? You know what I mean? Like it really makes me wonder with some of these. Well, I mean, you look at
when we looked at so again, this is part of the reason why I brought this up to be mentioned was because, it was time that Hunter Biden was supposed to stand trial. Like he was, supposed to be interviewed and
he didn't show up,
interrogated, right? And he didn't show up. He stood outside. He stood outside and did a press conference and talked about how they were only doing this to, make his father look bad. Where if you guys remember, Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, sat and were interrogated for hours upon hours. There's video footage of Joe Biden himself just a few years ago talking about how individuals that skip out on being subpoenaed should be arrested. And yet here's his son doing just that, going, and he's like, oh, it's, they're just trying to pin my son down, because they have nothing better to do to get to me. Mm-hmm. It's all hypocritical.
Right.
And yeah, and let me just say, I mean, if any of us were accused of this kind of stuff, and we decided, we're not going to go to a congressional hearing, we're going to do a press conference outside. You think any of us would have gotten away with that? No, we'd be in handcuffs and be awaiting trial. It is. I don't know.
Let me ask you guys this. Even though there's no way that it would be done before the election, like it wouldn't be done. Hypothetically, let's say Hunter Biden gets charged, gets sentenced to life in prison, something like that. What's the over under that before the election? Let's say that Daddy Joe would give him the presidential pardon.
Oh, he'd get it. No question.
Do you think he would do it? Do you think he would give him the pardon before the election?
That would be
before voting.
That would be that would be the end of Joe Biden politically. I mean, he's already on thin ice he's
at the end of his life anyway.
Before I go
on his way out, he pardons him.
Before I go, Yeah, to me this whole thing. I mean, I think both. And you mentioned that both sides, I think, are counting on political pardons because if Trump gets hit with all these indictments that he's got, he thinks that he'll be able to pardon himself. If Hunter Biden gets convicted, dear old dad will pardon me. But
has a president ever pardoned themselves before?
No. But the only controversial pardon that really immediately comes to mind, of course, is when Gerald Ford, 2 weeks after taking office, pardons Richard Nixon, and that ended Gerald Ford's political life right then and there, because the people of America, Republicans and Democrats, wanted a conviction of Richard Nixon because he was caught red-handed. He was caught, just all of this stuff, and they wanted his head. Now I think it's a change in political environments now, though, because it is so politically charged. I think it's more politically charged now than it was back in 1974. I think that it's more politically charged today, that people are wanting to find an excuse to hammer Trump, to hammer Biden, and if Joe gives a pardon or Trump tries to pardon himself, I mean we're doomed politically. I'll just say it like that.
Do you think, based off of hypothetically, you might be able to answer this. So, if let's say Trump is elected president, let's say it happens, and obviously there's a couple months before he would actually take office. If he was arrested, like in December, for example, actually they called him guilty, they put him in prison, would he be able to pardon himself from a prison cell?
I've heard mixed things on this, and by my understanding of the Constitution, if he's not president until he's not. I don't know if he's officially not president until Congress certifies the vote on January the 6th. So he's technically not president.
But if he was in jail, if he got arrested on January 4th, and
that's going to present. And I just look at how this. When you look at, I look at this and I see all the political back and forth. I mean, when you look at how. If you put a timeline, and I kind of did this week, and I don't know where it's at now, but I'd put some. You put the timeline. We talked about the timeline of Hunter Biden. When you put Hunter Biden stuff next to Donald Trump stuff, it's very. I don't know if it's suspicious is the word I want to use, as it goes back and forth. Something happens with a Trump indictment, then a Hunter Biden, then a Trump, then a Biden, then a Trump, and then a Biden. If you put these two timelines, and I think somebody did it, I don't know if it was the Times or who did it, but it was really unique to see how this has just been a back and forth. And so I'm waiting for the next. I don't think the Giuliani thing was the real big poo that hit the fan after the stuff with Hunter. But I mean, to me, it's just there is. Unless you're totally devoid of political common sense, you can see what this plays into, because, like you said, Travis, if this had been anybody else on any other standard or on any other scale, this would have been done, over with, see you later. But because this is Joe Biden and because this is Donald Trump, we are seeing this trading, shooting across the bow here, and we're seeing a lot of that. And
I think what's interesting too, I mean, I was reading on his timeline as well. I mean, they had asked Biden, I think, right before, I want to say that article, we're referencing, it was like October 2020, they had asked Joe Biden directly, did your son receive payments from, I think, China or a foreign country? I forget how they worded it. And he said no, which this oversight committee is clearly showing that is not the case. And it's been going on from multiple different countries. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, if the evidence is there, they got the paperwork, and there's a paper trail that clearly shows this, and there's legal documents that show it. I mean, by all means, throw the book at him.
But there's always see that's just it though. I think
But
that there's
vice
always
versa, you could also. But I'm gonna say I don't. Some of the stuff that Trump's accused of, like some of the tax stuff, I think is kind of obvious. Like I don't know how he gets out of some of the tax stuff.
oh, I
Like
don't
for
either.
example, like
Right.
I'm paraphrasing here. Could be 100% wrong. To my knowledge, he had one of his properties. He got out of paying a bunch of property taxes because he lied about the value of a property. And I think where they caught him was they asked him, "Hey, this is only worth so and so." And the guy's ego, of course, like, "No, it's worth way more than that. It's worth this." And they're like, "Oh, really?" Because on your tax document, it said it was only worth this much money. So stuff like that, I think is going to get him. I don't think that'll keep him from being president, but it's still a bad look. And um, so I don't know. That again, that's just paraphrasing here. I have no article to support that, but I know tax stuff something he's being accused of, and that's what I heard. So, and I wouldn't surprise me one bit. I mean, the guy's claimed he plays to. Remember the whole debate he did with Hillary? He plays the tax code.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's like,
I mean, he was very open about it, and I mean,
like,
technically it's legal.
he's like,
But
I have smart people working for me.
now,
Smart
clearly
accountants.
lying about property tax value, that is illegal.
Yeah.
He'd pay a fine for it, but well, I don't know. Yeah, it's Trump. He'd just pay a fine for it. He's not going to go to prison for that. But
Well,
yeah,
you're
I think we
never
just need
you're
to
never
blow him off
going
his.
to me there's not going to be any peace and quiet, I think, in the White House or within. And
That's the thing. If Trump becomes president again, it's just going to be the same thing. Then there's going to be it's going to be a constant trying to impeach him in office, and nothing's going to get passed through Congress because all they're going to be doing is fighting for power. The Senate's going to be in a standstill. The House is just going to continue to be a mess.
well,
I don't see this being a progress at all.
Hey, now listen, there was meaningful legislation passed right before the break of Congress this week. If you guys didn't hear, I caught this on a news blurb this morning that Congress a bill passed through both houses to basically to ban the use of whole milk in school lunches in America. Okay, that got passed. It hasn't made it to the president's desk yet, but that meaningful legislation, Travis. You can't.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea. It's just, hey, look what we did. We're looking out for the well-being of our kids. Just
isn't that funny that like they do shit like that because they're like, yes, we will ban whole milk from schools because we want our children to be healthier, and yet there's no push in the government there to make, if you are given SNAP benefits that you are, you shouldn't be able to spend it at McDonald's.
Oh, wait a minute. I got that
Burger King.
I do have that backwards. They're bringing back whole milk from reduced fat milk. There you go. I messed that up. I brought this back up.
Good.
Yeah, but it was like
Michelle Obama is punching a hole in the wall right now.
Up yours, Michelle Obama. Take that. God,
Man.
no, but it passed 4 days ago. 4 days ago, this passed, and so it's on its way to the president. So, but why can't we? Why can't we focus on? Is
that really a priority right now?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, right. I mean, you've got two wars going on different fronts. You have two active, potentially world-ending wars going on. That could lead into a World War III. You have inflation at a peak where American families cannot afford to buy the groceries, like you said, Sean, can't afford to buy the groceries that they need to have the benefits to get the groceries that they need. And here we are. Well, look at that guy. What's I mean, in your eyes, and I know the answer to this, and it's probably a well-duh answer anyway. What's the end game? What's the end game for this? To go after Biden or to go out. So let's say you get Biden out, or let's say if it goes to Trump and he gets reelected and you get Trump out. What's the end game? What are you hoping to accomplish as a result of all?
It was the same thing with McCarthy. What were they hoping to accomplish by getting him out? They accomplished nothing, but they just pushed it.
there is no plan. It's just
I
right, baby.
no, it's okay. To me, that's just it. There is no. Okay, you. That's a great example, Travis. Saying McCarthy. Okay, we got rid of Kevin McCarthy. Now we have Michael Johnson in there, who is the you know biggest nobody knows this guy. The biggest nobody knows this guy, and nothing is there's not we haven't made any headway on by the way the debt moratorium is it January the 4th or 5th, I think it's set to. We're going to be dealing with debt ceiling crap again. you know why aren't we discussing that? Why aren't we as American citizens discussing that? But yet the go-to every time when people say anything about Donald Trump, Hunter Biden, what and
this country runs on whataboutisms.
Yeah,
like is quite literally runs on them, and it's annoying because you're right. Like there's a lot of things, like you said. I will see like President Biden will tweet, or his staffers will tweet for him on the official POTUS account that House Republicans are blocking the spending budget again. They hate the United States people. Like coming from the president's social media account, that is what we are getting. That is a clear rift. Instead of them going, hey, let's have a serious sit down and talk, but instead, both sides, we have people taking it in the ass in one chamber, and then we have morons like Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene screaming their heads off like chickens in another room anytime that a Democrat wants to go up to speak. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
to go on what you just said, Sean, to give the Republicans some credit with the whole the White House will make a claim like, oh, the Republicans don't want to be in a spending bill. They hate America. But it's like, well, if you actually look at what's inside the bill, some of the reasons
no, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
But they put it out here for like, well, the Republicans just don't care. Some stuff, yeah, there needs to be some compromise. But like, at the same token, Democrats aren't really compromising either.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, you guys remember we talked about it before during some of the initial like COVID relief money, and it turns out that hundreds of thousands of, and even in some cases millions of dollars were making their way to like the JFK Museum. Like, the way that bills work and the way that hidden language. I mean, this is one thing that I learned while doing youth and government back whenever I was in high school. Was there's a lot of hidden language in bills, because it's funny, because if you think about it, and you can attest to this, right? So obviously a bill that is actually being put into the discussion rooms before it makes the House floor, before it makes it to the Senate, right? For high schoolers, some of these bills are a page in length. Real world application, there is a longer laundry list of things that go into these bills. Mm-hmm. But what's funny is the amount of crap that gets piled into these bills. I mean, it is you can have a bill that is quite literally talking about the rear end of a pig, and yet the entirety of these bills will cover everything that involves the pig and then every other animal on the farm. Mm-hmm. So it's just like that is the problem that we have, is that it's few and far between that we have bills that get passed that are short, sweet, to the point. I saw recently in Florida, and I have to double check to confirm this, but it was interesting because apparently Florida, and I saw this on like 3 different social media reports, so I don't know how true it is, but apparently recently, like within the last year, Florida made pedophile charges. Like if you commit a sex crime against a child, you can get the death penalty. And apparently there is an individual in Florida who recorded himself doing lewd acts on a child under the age of 12, I do believe. And then a bunch of horrific stuff, but essentially is the first pedophile that they have that they are throwing the death penalty at. So that'll be interesting to see how that court case goes.
Well, you mentioned some of these bills. So, on average, your average bill, okay, is around 1,500 words. Okay, and you talk about what's included in some of these bills. When you can make a bill like what you just said there about pedophiles and death penalty. And some of the most unlikeliest stuff will be attached to the tail end of that bill. Okay? And this is how state and federal lawmakers work. I can make a well-meaning bill, like you just mentioned. Okay, we're going to put this pedophile on death row. Okay? But somewhere attached in this is what your lawmakers are hoping for, is that when you look at a bill, when you read a bill, you're not, and the average citizen won't read a bill. Just simply for the verbiage that they use in these bills are so, legalized and so overdrawn that people will just like get lost in it. But I mean, it can take literally just a line in a bill. You could put a line in a bill that, for, like you said, here's this bill that's going to be, it spells out death penalty for those in child, involved in child in molesting or hurting or raping or killing a child, blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. And they can put a one-line sentence at the end of it that says, "Oh yes, and this county will receive a $20 million tax incentive to build a prison to house such people on death row for this." I mean, the stuff like this happens all the time, and people don't look into the actual wordage of a bill, and lawmakers count on that, and they count on that, and I think it's sad that it's come to that, instead of just coming right out and saying, "Hey, I did this for my district, and here I'm just no, we're gonna tie it into this other bill to kind of get anything added to it." So I mean, that's the nature of the beast, and I think to bring this back full circle to what we were saying earlier, this is your end game. This is your end game. I think we've kind of answered that question now. When we get into power, the ultimate end game for any political party is to gain and maintain power in whatever governmental body it is. And it's gotten to the point where I think the stakes are so high now because of the, let's just call it, billions of dollars that are out there that can be made by these parties, by these individuals. If we can get the other guy out and we can get all of our guys in, and there's no questions asked and there's no raised eyebrows, then we can get away with pretty much whatever we want to. And to me, that's such a disgrace. But it is the world that we've lived in. It's been the world that we've lived in for as long. I don't, could we ever say that there was ever an honest day of policy or politics that have occurred in Washington, D.C.? Probably not. But the whole to me, the whole thing just sickens me as to what this all boils down to. Joe Trump. And like I said, we're not going to see political peace until both of these guys, and I hate to sound like this, but until both of these guys die and they get off the political landscape, and we get fresh faces, or even relatively, some who aren't even geriatric in there to run for office, that we'll still see this continue.
Well, as long as Trump keeps going to UFC events, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. It's a man of the people right there.
Yeah. Last night at the UFC, where was the UFC fight at last night, by the way?
Las Vegas, right, Sean?
Yeah.
Yep, it was in Vegas.
I'm sure that Donnie didn't make any side trips to visit any side chicks or anything like that. But
he probably went to the Mayweather Club.
Okay, what's the Mayweather? Now you.
Floyd Mayweather owns a
strip
club in Vegas that it seems pretty effing wild.
Yeah, the only videos I've ever seen is like he's up on the balcony and just like the video's like Mayweather throws $50,000 into the crowd. He's like, "This is raining money," and he's just dropping $50K on people. It's insanity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Trump. I don't think Trump will do it.
Oh my gosh, this is wow. We went from raining money. We went from being bent over the dais to raining money. I think we've covered it all.
But even then, like, okay, say I think you mentioned kind of the end game. I want to end on that.
Okay.
Say say he's found guilty. Like, at the end of the day, what happens? Like, what's going to happen to Joe Biden? Nothing. Just because they get an impeachment for something doesn't mean he's actually out of office.
That's the other thing too.
Nothing's going to change. Like, nothing's going to change. And
you have a Democratic. You need 66 votes to convict. You're not going to get 66 votes. You're counting on, all 50 Democrats will vote for a conviction, or all 50 Republicans will vote for a conviction, but you're not going to convict 16. You're not going to convince 16 Democrats to vote for impeachment or to convict.
But that's another thing too. It's difficult because, like, all right, nothing's going to happen, but at the same time, like, if there is actual evidence of wrongdoing and he is found, like, do you still do the right thing and, like, follow the law and enforce the law? I mean,
that's political.
But, like, should you? Even though you know that you're not going to get the votes for, like, should you still enforce it even though you know? Like, should you still make that example? Like,
the only person in my mind who would have been an example to be made of was Richard Nixon. When you look at
for sure.
When you look at the 3 impeachments that occurred, well, technically 4 if you count Donald Trump twice. When you look at those impeachments, Andrew Johnson, political theater. Okay, Bill Clinton, political theater. Donald Trump, I mean, the first one definitely political theater. Second one I could kind of see, but at the same time political theater. When you're doing this, there's no real goal in place in my view, because at the end of the day, you have to have a 2/3 vote in the Senate to convict. Now, Andrew Johnson with his conviction came 1 vote short of conviction. That's the closest we came. Richard Nixon resigned because he knew the writing was on the wall. He knew that he was going to get hammered, and his own party was ready to crucify him. Richard Nixon's party was ready to crucify him at that point, and they were going to crucify him, and rightly so. But when you look at, as much as I dislike Trump and as much as I dislike Biden, in my view, and I consider myself to be politically centrist on this, there's nothing that you can convict these guys of that's detrimental to the security of our country. When you look at what it says in the Constitution, treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Those are the impeachable offenses. Okay? Treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. And the framers left high crimes and misdemeanors as this vague, wide open door to, well, we can't say everything that they can be charged for, but let's just throw in high crimes and misdemeanors. Damn the framers, because they left a lot of the Constitution to be bare bones like that on purpose, because they couldn't cover everything. But okay, so what constitutes a high crime and misdemeanor? and that's so vague, because can you say that making a deal with the Ukraine, okay, withholding money from the Ukraine, that's a high crime and misdemeanor. Okay, using your cigar as a pleasure toy for Monica Lewinsky, is that a high crime and misdemeanor? Lying about it under oath. I mean, lying. Well, and that's actually what Bill was impeached for, was lying under oath. Really, a high crime and misdemeanor? That'll get you about a week in jail on the normal. Being in contempt. Being in contempt in court, lying under oath. This is one of those times where we should have Alex Ellison on. But we really. This is what we've come to, and it's a sad state of affairs for American government.
Agreed. I agree.
One other thing before we head out tonight, I did mention Alex Ellison, and we at the Voice of Reason, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but I'm going to go ahead and announce it. We do want to send our condolences to the Ellison family. Alex Ellison's grandfather passed away Friday evening. We do want to pass along, Alex is probably our most used guest that we use on the show, and we know that he's an active listener, and we do want to send out our condolences to the Ellison family in this time of mourning. So
Absolutely,
our best goes out to the Ellison family. And but yeah, hey, continue to support us on the on all of our. We're getting a lot of feedback. We still got about 400 fans to go on TikTok, so we can broadcast our filth on TikTok as well. You know,
very soon. That's where the money will be made.
Yep. So
no, thank you. No, seriously though, thank you guys all for listening. Yeah, and some of you guys will kind of notice some of the formatting of how how we release the show is changing a little bit. But trust us, it's for the better. It makes our schedules align a lot better, and takes a lot of the stress of parenthood off of our backs, and allows us to kind of continue to put the show out more frequently, regularly, without interruptions and stuff like that. But again, thank you all so much for listening.
And we do want to say too, we will probably not be on next week because of the Christmas holiday.
Correct.
But be following, and we'll keep you up to date. So I'm sorry, Sean, to interrupt.
Always. No, you're good. Be a friend, tell a friend, and we will see you guys as we head. Maybe our next episode, as we hit the new year, will be like a New Year's resolution, and line it out for what we've got for 2024 and what some of the things we have in store are for you guys.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.